So in addition to the recording afterwards, I'll also be sending you the login details for your whole entire deployment as well. So over the next 2 weeks, you can play with a little bit of what we go over today.
Fantastic.
So a little bit of what we'll cover today, or at least this is a rough agenda. We can move outside of this, but this is roughly what I was thinking based on my conversation with the other John of what you need and what you're really looking for. So the majority of the session, I'm looking to let you know a little bit about how we lay out our projects in Affinity Live, and specifically in the consulting world, how it will look with putting out the plan and especially with logging time. So Affinity Live does a really good job tying in both integrated timesheets. So you can imagine a harvest type timesheet, but attached to this really nice plan, which you can manage and go forward with. And then we'll move into a little bit of actually managing the project, what it looks like the day-to-day for the directors or for the project managers. And then finally, how you take all the time that you've logged on a particular project and then invoice that over to Xero.
Sure.
And then if we have a little bit of time on the back end, maybe touch on sales a little bit, because we have a really nice integration with our project. So you can actually quote directly from a sale and then in one click turn that into a project. So I know you're using Salesforce. I don't know how entrenched you are into using that on a day-to-day basis, but after people from the software implementation consultancy world, after they've seen our project, they think, oh, shoot, maybe we should resync Salesforce. So I always like to throw that in at the end.
Yep.
Is
okay,
anything
sounds
else,
good. I've
Peter,
probably got a couple of no, that sounds good. And I've got a couple of specific questions around consulting projects that I want to, which I can ask at the time if you want, or I can leave.
Anything else on the agenda that you would like to add to it? I've built in probably around 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A as well, but we can actually put that into showing something.
No, that's fine. Sounds good.
Looks good, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So let's hop over into a project and actually setting the plan of the project.
Yep.
So what you can see here from the high-level overview is actually the project board where you're managing your day-to-day tasks and seeing what people are up to. And what I want to draw attention to is the usage. So we put the financial budgets right up in front. So it's really easy to see, okay, what are people logging time for? Are we about to go over budget, or are we nailing this? Are we on track? So you can see here on a high-level overview how much budget is being taken up for a particular phase. So this is the requirements, the beginning phase of this project. But we can also dig down to each task level and see what Guav is up to or what Peter is doing.
Yeah.
So essentially what this does is, from a project management perspective, give you a really good sense of where things are going, but also you're able to come in here and say, hey, what's going on? And it's that communication that's really powerful as well. So what I can do is, on this note, I guess we can say, what's going on? It only looks like you're maybe halfway through with the actual task, but you seem to be logging a lot more time than is required. So should we talk to Bloomdale Pharma and say, look, this section is actually running over. It looks like we're going to have another meeting, or what is really going on? So you're nailing pretty much troubleshooting essentially on your project.
Yeah.
So where does it pull these figures from? Do we set up an actual project plan in the software, and then it pulls out the relevant metrics?
Exactly. So what we're looking at is actually the middle layer of managing project. There's a Gantt chart type structure on the back end called the project plan, and then the timesheets are sitting on top of this. So actually, that's what I was about to go into, the back end.
And just before you do, sorry to interrupt, but this front view, you've got metrics looking at progress on the usage figure is based on dollars. Can we track hours as well?
Yeah, time.
Oh, I just click on that. Cool. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So what I'll do is I'm going to go into the back end of what this project looks like. So every single project has the structure on the back end. You're not going to be jumping into this on a daily basis, but it is nice to have this Microsoft projects type Gantt chart view where you have the high level milestones on the left hand side with all the tasks that cascade below. So very similar to the Excel type view that you might be setting up your projects right now, and then actually a drag and droppable Gantt chart on the right hand side where you can start saying, okay, I think this task is going to take me about a week. Oh shoot, it looks like market analysis has already been commenced, meaning that it would push my plan out. So I actually can't do that. I can only move it to the 11th.
Okay, and then does there a step up from that which looks at kind of overall projects across the work in progress kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. So there's a few views. There's obviously the on a per project basis, the work in progress view that we're seeing right here.
Yeah.
And then are you looking for one level above that, a work in progress view?
Yeah.
Sure. So then we would come to our high level project view or report. There's only one project right now.
Yeah, okay.
So you're able to see that project and then the overall usage. And if you were to have multiple projects, then you can start filtering. So what project managers like to do is they go up here and say, okay, Peter, I only want to see the ones that I'm actually in charge of.
Yeah.
And then start filtering by that and filter by product status. So you can do a lot of different filtering in this view as well. This is essentially a flat report, but then it has this high level information.
So you could filter by company and project type as well?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. Great.
So there's what do you would expect from project reporting? Everything this year.
We may have different types of consulting projects, so ongoing ones or just ad hoc analysis.
Yeah. So we might do, like Will's saying, a piece of work which would be exactly like this, where we would want to say it's a fixed cost, it's 20K, and we want to track our time against it, and it's time measured. But then there'll be other ones which are we've got a data platform where we may be delivering a kind of quarterly deliverable over 12 months. So it's sort of like on a retainer basis almost.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it sounds like. So to answer that, yes, you can filter by project type. We only have one project type loaded right now, so you're not seeing that option. But yes, if you have multiple projects, you can filter by types. And then to answer the second question for that quarterly deliverable, it depends on how we want to set it up, but you always have the option to link projects to retainers. So you can manage all of the project work within a project and then go over to the billing side of it every quarter and then loop that up into a retainer bucket.
Okay. And so we could potentially, just as an example, say we were doing a quarterly deliverable. Sometimes we just invoice quarterly, but sometimes we get paid up front. We've got to manage POs and all that sort of stuff. Is that stuff that you can do within the retainer part?
For being paid up front, I would go through a project for down payments. So if you're looking at a 25 or 50% before a project commences, I would actually go through the project for that one since it's a one-time payment. If we're looking at POs, we're not actually able to do POs within Affinity Live. So what people have done as a workaround is take all of the different quotes or vendors and maybe link up a Excel spreadsheet to the project or put in custom fields based on who you've actually accepted to do the work with you. But that's not something that's actually built in.
Okay, but we could have a custom field around a PO number.
Yes.
Okay, that's all right. Kind of what we do now.
Okay. So let's go back to this project view, the midline project view.
Yep.
And I'll show you the first place where you can log time on the project. And often, maybe the project manager will be looking at this screen and logging time on the screen. But what I'll show you shortly is how your team most likely will be logging their time on the timesheet.
Yep.
But first, let's show the more manual process. So Peter, you would be able to come in here, and maybe we're doing a market analysis for this part of the investigation.
Oh.
So I can come in here and add an activity, and I've already shown you an internal note, so let's move to something else. So we can actually log time on client meetings as well. So let's say the market analysis actually became a market analysis meeting where we're talking with the people and seeing where the trends are going.
Yeah.
So we can actually loop in James and
It's been recorded, G, so we can go through it later if you want. Sorry. Yep.
Sure.
Karen.
And then let's say this actually happened for 1 hour. I can select it as billable or non-billable, and that happens anywhere throughout the system as well. And the meeting went well.
Can we report against, like in terms of functionality, if we want to say how many meetings have we done with a client on a quarterly basis?
Yes,
Is that
so
sort of stuff we can pull out?
that would be through an activity report, and absolutely we can do that.
Yeah.
Any reason you wanted to look into that?
Oh, we've just been talking about that in terms of we're kind of starting to move towards an account management approach and try to be a bit more proactive in, meeting people on a quarterly basis or something, and just so to be able to track that would be, I think, useful for us.
The other aspect would be some clients are more demanding than others, so just keeping an eye on the hours consumed, so we can manage profitability across different customer types. Yeah.
Definitely, and it's amazing when you're looking at time tracking for billable work in the project world. What we've done in Affinity Live is actually applied that also to the account management world. So exactly like you're saying, now we can log time again. How many engagements, or even in the sales process, how much time is it taking me to close a 10K, 20K, 30K deal, and was it actually worth pursuing them? You can start doing that analysis in Affinity Live as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Because that's actually a component. One of the things I had written down is like the whole BD side of things. So this is project-based, but what about that in terms of business development and, against a client? Or for new clients where you're sort of doing BD, which is...
What? So, actually, if we can table the BD conversation until after we finish the project side, I would love to go in.
Yeah, sorry, we're jumping you around. Sorry, mate. We'll shut up.
No, it's fine. No, we're going on an interesting and fun tangent, actually. So I want to put a nice big star next to that.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So the other thing I'd like to show is how it would look for your team for actually logging time against this project, since buy-in is one of the biggest things we notice with a timesheet. If the timesheet isn't easy to use, or if it's out of the way, if it's not integrated with the system, no one is going to use it.
No.
Sound familiar?
Yeah.
So I'm going to refresh the screen. Let's go to your timesheet. So what you can see here in the timesheet are items that I've already logged. And once you hook up your email account, you'd also be able to see meetings coming in as well as emails coming in. So it's a combination of what I've already logged, what I should have logged, and then it's predictive as well. So, for example, these tasks that are pulling in are things that I need to do this week, it won't show me actually needing to add this task on a Wednesday or a Thursday yet because it's not that time. But when it comes to that time, it's going to say, hey, Peter, you should probably log 2 hours against this task if you haven't already. But what you can see here is that task that the market analysis meeting that I had with James from Bloomdale Pharma actually showed up here on the timesheet.
Okay.
So what you're seeing is all the items I need to do in a particular week on the left-hand side. And
does that link against your Outlook at all?
It does, yeah. So what it would look like from the Outlook side is it would start suggesting email times. And let's see if I can actually pull up
or
one
even
with
just from
examples.
from a calendar point of view.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to pull in different meetings as well and suggest those.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what it would look like on one of our demo timesheets. So right now it's pulling in all the email suggestions right here, and it doesn't look like I have any actual calendar event suggestions, but it would be the exact same thing where it says, hey, you had 30 minutes logged against this client. You should probably actually record that within your timesheet.
Nice.
Pretty handy, yeah.
So that's for email, and does it do it for meetings as well?
Mm-hmm. So Outlook Calendar would be, instead of a little email suggestion underneath, it would say calendar event suggestion underneath.
Good.
And then
good.
email is email, and then there's also task suggestions as well.
And can you also, so one of the issues for us is trying to sync up, you know, if we've got 6 consultants who are looking, we want to kind of have an overall shared calendar. Is that done within here?
Mm-hmm. The overall shared calendar, we don't actually have a calendar view within Affinity Live, but I noticed one of your pain points was actually looking at your resources and what people are up to. So this is actually a perfect segue, unless there's any last questions on a timesheet, into our team scheduling forecasting aspect.
Well, yeah, I do have a question around the timesheet, and that is, how does it integrate with Xero? So if you've got tasks allocated through Xero, can that pop up here? That's associated with a given project, or?
I wish. So our Jira connection is mainly just a FYI informational link between tickets or issues, however you want to call it in your system, in Jira's tickets or issues. And that's how the integration goes. Now, a couple of our software/consultant firms are using Affinity Live as mainly their service aspect, but they still have this dev aspect sitting over in Jira. And what they've done is gone through our API, and actually, when you create a new issue in Jira, have that sync over to Affinity Live with a timestamp on it, or you can then log time in here. So it's doable through the API, but it's not a built-in feature in Affinity Live.
So to facilitate that with an API, we can do that. It's, you know, or get someone to do it. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
And then it bridges both sides. You have your services side in Affinity Live, then you can also have your dev team logging in.
Okay, and so if there is if the developers will be doing a mix of things. So they might be doing project-specific work, you know, that is, you know, time billable, but then they might be doing sort of just general R&D type work, which isn't going to be logged against a particular project.
Right.
So we'd still want to capture that sort of stuff from a billable versus non-billable, and so would we have to set up a separate project almost, or called R&D, or you know, which is non-client facing? Is that how do people look after internal stuff?
Yeah. So what you would want to do, and I can pull this up right here, is under this company, Prospection, you would create an internal project or whatever internal project. So Pharma Dash might be one, and all your other product lines could be others. And you can then pull that in and just start logging time against those.
Okay. Makes sense.
So it gets a little bit tricky, the Jira connection, when you're talking about things that are both service and a little bit of project-specific work.
Yeah.
So the R&D example is a lot better example, where I think it would be a pretty clean integration. But if you were to move into well, this is more client-facing and we're billing it by hour, and this is more an FYI supportive role, we might get into a little bit of trickiness.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's I expected that there'll be a little bit of trickiness. And wasn't there like a timer thing that you could set off? I think I saw that on the demo.
Yes. So we're slowly moving from manual to automated. So on the project, we have, you click right where the task is. On the timesheet, you have suggestions on where to log. And then we're moving into a quick add timer. And that's exactly what you saw. So where we find timers useful are for designers and devs, because they love to just start recording time and doing what they do.
Yeah.
Or when someone calls you up, so a support-related function. A lot of people are using timers. So you can start a timer without any information and fill it in later, or you can pre-record it and just let it run.
Okay.
So there it is, sitting there. You can change different tabs within Affinity Live, and it's going to still be running. And then if you want to actually let the timer be complete, it's going to pop you to this note dialog, the internal item that you are logging, or you can move it into any of the other 3 client-facing items.
Yeah.
That's more or less how the timer works. And then the last place that we're finding teams really like for logging time is the task board. So when I log in, instead of getting bogged down by instead of getting bogged down by the big project, now I have a Kanban style of just what I need to do. This is going to be really easy since you're used to the drag and drop functionality of moving different items around. But now it's all going back to this big, large project plan that's very structured. And I can actually log time from here as well. And like before, I can add an activity. Let's say I worked on this for 30 minutes.
Okay.
So what we're finding is there's a lot of different ways to log time in the system, whether you're actually physically logging time or not even thinking about logging time, and the system just picking up saying, hey, you did 10 minutes of emails or 2 hours of meetings, and it all integrated pulling into Affinity Live. So we're seeing a really high adoption with actually getting some sort of time tracking, however you want to use it, into the project plan.
Yeah, okay.
Any last questions about logging time on a project before moving to more of the high-level forecasting?
No. So say we've got a project which isn't necessarily time-based. If we sort of got a product almost with the data, and we've got an opportunity, say in Salesforce, and we've got an amount against that. We can pull that through as a new project. There's an integration with Salesforce, is there, or does the opportunity have to be closed, or?
So with Salesforce, we actually don't integrate with Salesforce. We have a connection for pulling over all your sales and companies and contact information, but it's not a live sync.
Okay.
Again, what we can do with the API is any new sale created in Salesforce can sync over to Affinity Live. And with our sales module, you can actually quote directly for a project. So, for example, in that consulting, the different milestones and tasks and predefined hours can all wrap up into a really nice looking quote that you can send to your customers, and then with one click you can convert that quote into a full-blown project.
Okay. But say we're using our Salesforce as an opportunity pipeline, and we'll close deals and we'll have a value on that. Can that can then be sent across to set up a project?
If you're doing it outside of Affinity Live, the value coming over, probably not. I'm just thinking of looking at how value is created in Affinity Live. The value on a project, if you're looking at it, is a function. This service value is a function of all the milestones and tasks that are related to it. So those might be fixed rate milestones, or they could be a time and material milestone that rolls up all the time you're spending on a particular task. But it's not like a sales value is actually deriving the value of this project. It's all the things that you're doing in the project.
But can you put an actual value against the value of the project? You obviously have to, because you're going to invoice. So we want to track our internal usage and time for a kind of from a profitability point of view, because we don't necessarily on charge based on time. We will tend to invoice. We'll say this project for Farmer Dash is a $20,000 piece of work. You see what I mean?
I'm not quite understanding. So you're just trying to invoice for a flat rate on this project, right? For just $20K?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what we would want to do is not put any budgets on the milestones or tasks, and just keep it as more of an FYI for how much time I'm logging, and then put the overarching value of the project as $20K as just a flat rate, and then we can absolutely invoice for it. So what you would then see when you manage the project is not money usage, but only time usage for each of the different items.
Yeah.
So we can do that, and if you come in and just put $20K, then fine. The overall service delivery would be $20.
And can you allocate like internal charges against people's time within Affinity Live? So say if we've got, so based on salaries or something, or do you
billable rates? Yeah.
Do you have to pull that out? Well, there's billable rates, but there's also, I guess internal
costs. Their yearly salary divided by how many days they work, essentially.
Yeah.
So right now we're actually building out what we're calling a contractors module, which is going to be our first introduction of assigning a cost to a particular person who's using a system, and differentiating the client-facing charging versus the internal-facing charging. But right now, we don't have profitability analysis on projects. Besides what you're seeing here, is it on budget, below budget, or over budget?
But that's okay in the sense that you can just pull out, I assume you can pull out an Excel spreadsheet of profit of time per job against each person, and then you can add that and work out profitability pretty easily.
Exactly. So what we have is something called a timesheet report, and you can run that report for whatever segment of time on whoever within the system. And like you said, just take how much money they bring in, divided by their internal cost, and look at their percent.
Okay. I'm aware it's 9:35, but I just had one other question, just in terms of so if I'm kind of like at a management level, kind of overseen, involved in lots of little things, spreading myself across different things. One of the things with Harvest that was a pain was just actually trying to allocate time over, a lots of different projects.
Yeah.
And whether the bucket's getting too small or not. But what's your, in terms of an implementation thing which is workable? Have you got any thoughts around that, or?
So this actually gets back to resource forecasting. So it's our team scheduling is a combination of how you allocate time with a whole bunch of people across a given time, and then also looking into the future on how busy people are. So I think this is a perfect lead into team scheduling.
Okay.
So before actually hopping in, what you're going to see in the team scheduling are 3 panels. On the left-hand side are all the unassigned tasks that from this particular project. And then in the middle, we're going to see everyone's resource availability essentially for a given period of time, whether that be a week or a month. And then on the right-hand panel, you're going to see what they're actually up to on any given day. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one of our team members on here as well. So here's the project, the specific project that I'm working on right now.
Yep.
And all the different items that need to happen. So, for example, let's say on this reporting item or delivery that we have 20 hours. And what we can do is we can actually drag it onto the calendar because it looked like he didn't have anything due on that day. And I can assign, let's actually block out his whole entire day to this particular task called reporting.
Okay.
And now you can see on Friday, his whole entire day is being taken on that. And let's say we still have about 12 hours remaining. So let's actually get you, Peter, working on this all day as well. So what you can see here is I'm slowly taking chunks of unassigned work or bigger work and putting it on different people's calendars.
Okay.
And then from a larger view, so this is more of a granular, all the things that need to be done for this particular project and on any given week. But if you were to look on a higher level overview, we can actually start going month to month and digging in how busy each person or how allocated, under allocated, or over allocated each person is on any given week in a particular month as well. So let's actually hop up. What you're saying is, well, maybe there's 200 tasks that we need to allocate, and it's a combination of a whole bunch of projects. As a project manager, I can actually come in here and let's see if there's any filters that we can put on. Maybe I want all pending tasks that are starting or that should have been started in the past 10 days. So we can start applying filtering to tasks as well, being able to see what people should be up to and then dragging and dropping onto their schedule. And like I said, we only have one project in the system, but you can imagine 10 or 20 projects. This list starts building up, so it would be useful to be able to drill down into a particular task. Let's see if there's anything. See if we can drill down anymore. Okay, that's about it. So any other questions, or would you like to explore this team scheduling view a bit more?
No. What about like you're going to go into invoicing? Was that the next thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So let's go back to this project. And just to reiterate, we want this to be a flat fee for the whole entire project and just log time as an internal metric, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh.
I'm going to come here and actually make just one minor adjustment. Well, actually, let's take a step back. What do you want your invoices to look like? Do you want just one overarching line item for the 20,000, or would you like to let people know how much each maybe phase is costing?
We could potentially want staged. So sometimes we'll stage things. We'll have 3 or 4 things in the one thing.
Okay. So let's actually keep this current structure because it's going to make the invoice a little bit more realistic. And so what's happening is from the project, it's now looping in every single high-level milestone and the associated value of each. And what this means here is a budget versus work done is if you were billing per hour to the customer, we would then be billing just the work that has been done on the particular task if you were to invoice for time and materials.
So what if talk to me about the materials budget. So if we just put a fixed amount in that materials budget.
Mm-hmm. In the hard goods that you're selling, right?
Yeah.
So if you put a fixed amount, then it's going to then invoice for a fixed amount.
Okay.
So for example,
but could you still have time against? So if we want to, we could still track time on a project based upon and look at that in terms of a time budget, but then we could also have a fixed material amount, and when we invoice, we would just invoice the material amount.
Exactly.
You see what I mean?
Or we can just,
that?
Yep, exactly.
Oh, so you can unclick any of these to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but the way that we would want to set it up for you is that our budget for each actually doesn't include any time in it, or to not have a rate that's attached to the final cost of each milestone. So there's ways to disassociate.
Yeah, okay.
But in this case, how do you normally invoice for a project? Is it done by stage? Is there a down payment?
There's a combination. So sometimes there's a 50% up front and then a final bill. Sometimes, like I said, there's a quarterly retainer that's paid. Sometimes it's up front and sometimes it's just at the end of the project.
Okay. So we can do from this invoicing, the upfront down payment, and then at the end of the project can be done right through here. And then, like I said, for that quarterly payment, we would probably want to loop it into a retainer.
Yeah.
So let's say we wanted to invoice for 100% of the budget, the full project. You can see here down below that each of these different line items are pulling the full budgeted amount for the milestone into the invoice. And the way the invoice sync goes is that each of these milestones become a line item and have a general ledger code that's associated with them. So what you're seeing that's pushing over to Xero is the name, the title of the line item, the overall amount, general ledger code, tax information. And then once it goes over to Xero, once you record a payment, all that information is then going to come back into Affinity Live. So Affinity Live becomes your point for creating invoices and then also potentially doing analysis on what you're getting paid for.
So what about if you did an invoice in Xero? Can it come back through to Affinity Live? It's a two-way?
It does, yes.
How do you link the project?
You won't get the nice breakdown if you send it from Xero because you're not tying line items from a particular project plan to Xero, but it will come back to the overarching either project you can apply it to or client view. When would be a case that you would want Xero to come back into Affinity Live?
Oh, I'm not sure. I was just wondering.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it works. A lot of people in your case, if you were to actually sell your software outside of Affinity Live, they would then have that sync back over, or maybe it's a subscription service. So you would run that through Xero.
A subscription service?
Yeah, if your software was running on a subscription basis versus a on-premise one-time sale basis.
Well, that's what we sort of do, really, to be honest.
Okay.
Like that's that quarterly retainer stuff I'm talking about.
Oh, sure. So it sounds like
we could set that up as I guess we sort of set that up as an opportunity, over a 12-month period, and then we would want to bill quarterly on that. So you're saying that we could can we set up a sort of regular schedule of payment, and then we would invoice that, and that would go then across out of Affinity Live. It would go out to Xero, and then be approved for sending out or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm just going to have to take a call. Hang on.
Did we want to continue or put a quick pause?
Oh, just a couple of minutes. If we pause. Oh, actually, he's ready now.
Okay.
Hi. Sorry.
Right. Wasn't too long. So let's do it.
I've got to leave about 5 to 10
for a whole project, and I can actually email the client to let them know about this invoice, and then with the information on how to pay you. That's essentially the full link of setting up a project, recording the time on a project through the various sections, and then actually invoicing for that time.
Oh, great. So that's taken out the internal hourly hours consumed for each part of the project, which is what we wanted. Yep.
Exactly. It's essentially just an override.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So I guess just to recap then, in terms of, the way the system's built, if we, I'm just thinking how we would practically implement it, and that would be, so if we sold a project for 20K, for instance, we would build a project plan using that Gantt chart, estimate the amount of hours required for each of the tasks, allocate that to the resources internally, use the tool to monitor progress against each one of those tasks while it's live, but come invoicing time, we would just invoice the 20K regardless of the hours consumed. So I think that's how we would probably be going to have to use it, because for that 20K for one client, we may have used 100 hours. For another, it could be 200 hours. So
right.
We'll have to calculate a project profitability outside of the tool, I guess.
Right, and you wouldn't want to have it, the number of hours that you log pass through to the customer, right?
No, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. So
what I would do is I would do milestone and then task below. So this is me estimating time for a task.
Yep.
With no budget. So as you can see here, I'm not putting a budget. I'm saying this task is going to take me 3 hours, which is great. And this milestone, I want it to have a defined price of, let's say, $1,500.
Yes. Yep.
And let's see if this will work, because I do not want... Okay. So this is the way that you would want to set it up.
Okay.
And then just making sure, let's see if it looks like it might have actually passed through. So I had to play around with this a little just to make sure that it doesn't pass through to the customer. Okay, it looks like it still is. All right, so wanted to play around with it a bit, but essentially that's the idea, to not have a $0 usage or just a time usage on that particular task. Yep. I'll move over to our high level overview. So talked a little bit about that flow. It took a little bit longer. If we want to touch on maybe 5 minutes on the sales aspect, fine, or we can just jump into Q&A or even end early, however you want to go.
Just the sales piece, please. Yeah.
Sure. So what's currently some struggles that you're having with Salesforce?
Well, I guess not so much a struggle, but to look for a system that would integrate that. Ideally, if we had an opportunity within Salesforce, be able to sync that to a project, a live setting. But we've discussed as that the Affinity Live doesn't fully integrate with it. I guess we can still manage that. We'll have the two systems running side by side, but
potentially a slow migration over, because I come from a software company that internally used Salesforce, and when I saw this CRM, I was really amazed by how nice it is, because we have that email integration with meetings and your Outlook calendar. Right. It's really nice from actually being able to collaborate on new deals standpoint.
Mm-hmm. So we're saying, do some professional services firms actually utilize your platform in place of SFDC to manage customers, or do companies tend to use both?
So I'm sorry, what? You're breaking up.
So are we saying that the sales module in Affinity Live could potentially replace SFDC, or
yes,
do clients tend to use both?
No. So clients will often, and like I was saying in the beginning of this conversation, they'll often come to us because they have a projects need from consulting world, or they're coming from a more IT managed service world, and they want to use our retainers and ticketing module, and then realize how powerful our CRM and sales is, and often will drop what they're currently using.
Great.
In favor of the sale.
Okay. Well, let's have a look at what's available in that module. Yeah.
Sure. So what's nice about the sales is that it's going to act a lot like what I've shown you in projects, where you can log activities, where you can create internal notes, you can send emails directly from Affinity Live. So it's really powerful. You don't have to hop back out into Outlook, or you don't have to BCC or copy and paste emails. All of it's going to be coming back into Affinity Live natively. And then I can do the other normal things you would see in a CRM, schedule a meeting, and log a call. So I can manually go through that process, or I can go through built-in automation. And it depends on what level of Salesforce you have, if you have pre-built workflows. But in Affinity Live, what you can do is these different statuses are not only used for reporting, but they're actually used for process. So, for example, if a proposal has been requested for this particular sale, it's actually prompting me to create a task called Write the Proposal as a next step for the salesperson. Or it would ask me to update particular fields at certain levels of the sales progression, or create meetings, or update the new value, things like that. So you can imagine your all-star salesperson sitting next to you and saying, hey, did you remember to do this? And you should probably do this in the next step to close and win this deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite parts of the CRM is this automation with the sales process.
And in terms of reporting, do you have good visuals in terms of that sort of pipeline stuff?
Yeah.
You got dashboards included.
And it might be pretty basic because we have one sale in the pipeline, but like any other thing, you would have the normal sales funnel, the different stages, which are all customizable to what you actually call things. The pipeline, and then a little bit of analysis and performance by staff.
Okay.
Good. All right. Hey, I'm going to have to run, John. That's really useful. So can you send through that recording? get another couple who to use it, and then we'll have to arrange some follow-up at some stage.
All right, fantastic.
Great.
Is that all right? Really
Nice
appreciate your time, and thanks for the help.
Absolutely.
Great. No, that's good. It's been great. Thanks, John.
All right.
And John?
No worries, guys. I'll follow up with an email to you guys so we can work out what the next steps are going to be when you got a little bit more time to talk it out.
Yeah, no, that's great. Sorry, I've got to run.
All right. Take care.
Cheers.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.